So I get a lot of questions about how to actually trust your own intuition and even things along the lines of how do I stop gaslighting myself? And this can be a really, really important topic if you have struggled with being in some kind of abusive relationship in your past romantic relationship history. If you were gaslit frequently growing up in your household as a child, or if there was any prominent figure and attachment based relationship in your life where there was a lot of broken trust or gaslighting as a whole. So, in this video, I'm going to take you through how to empower critical thinking, how to get out of the gaslighting relationship to self, how to rebuild that self trust at the root. And we're going to talk about 5 key points that are really valuable points of focus that can help you change these sort of limiting patterns and really get back into a healthy relationship to you. So, first and foremost, we want to be aware that every time we have these external experiences, especially if they're very repetitive in our lives, and especially if they happen quite early in our childhood, these things have a very deep ability to imprint the subconscious mind. So, an example of this is you'll often see your own internal dialogue in the relationship to yourself is quite reflective of the way you were spoken to as a child and growing up. In other words, we tend to take our external experiences that happen to us repetitively and they form part of the relationship we have to ourselves. And it's like these old tapes playing back over and over again. Now, that same pattern follows, of course, when it comes to gaslighting. So if you had a history of being taught to ignore your intuition, ignore your boundaries, ignore your feelings, because if you did express them, that would cause more conflict or get you punished or get you in trouble, or if you have a history of being in an abusive romantic relationships over the years, all of these things are going to fracture that relationship to self because they're going to imprint your subconscious mind to take on these facets in the relationship you have to you. And so regaining touch with your intuition really means, and this is point number one, to learn about your feelings, needs, and boundaries, and to learn to trust these things again and learn to listen to these aspects of self again through a lot of introspection. And by setting boundaries away from others, and even if that boundary starts off as like a time and space boundary, where you just take time and space to get anchored back into yourself and to like listen to your own feelings. Like, what I mean by this is at first it might be hard if you've been chronically gaslighting yourself for a very long time. You might actually need physical space and time away from people to be able to hear yourself again, because and it won't be this quick overnight thing. It will happen with a lot of like checking in with yourself, asking yourself what you're feeling, asking yourself what you need, doing work on needs. I mean, we've got all these courses set up in PDS for to cater to these things, right? So we've got the emotional mastery course, we've got the needs course, the boundaries course, and there's a lot of guidance in there if you need it. You can check them all out for free for 7 days using the link below, but there's a lot of guidance if you need it that asks you all these questions so you can learn to recognize your needs, learn to figure out what your boundaries are, do an audit of boundaries. And by doing this work and even just checking in with yourself, like as a whole, very regularly, you'll start to be like, okay, when I'm away from people, I'm starting to figure out what I feel, what I need, what my boundaries need to be so that I can feel protected and safe. And the more you set these, the more you're able to get back in touch with yourself and hear yourself again. Point number two, when you are around other people, those who struggle with chronic gaslighting in the relationship to themselves, they tend to overvalue or overvalidate the opinions of other people and undervalue their own perspective. And part of the reason they do this is they've been taught to do this. And it's because, if you were a child, let's say this was a lot of gaslighting in your home, for example, if you were a child and your parent was the authority or parents were the authority or whoever that was, if it was an influential mentor or teacher or somebody in your life, when they were the authority, when you're a little child and you have to rely on them, it fosters this element of dependency. And then when you're taught by that same person directly or indirectly to not trust yourself, to not listen to yourself, you in your little survival mind at the time as a child and not knowing any better, right? Which is not your fault. You learn, okay, well, to survive, to be okay, to navigate my environment, if I listen to this person more than myself, And if I don't really pay attention to my own boundaries, I don't cause extra conflict. I don't have these pain points or problems. I don't get into trouble. I don't get punished or shamed or criticized. So by ignoring myself and listening to the authority, I stay safe and my life is easier and better. And this will lead to a lifetime, unless this is reconditioned, a lifetime of listening to other people and taking other people's opinions as more valuable than your own. And it's not that we should devalue others' opinions. It's that if we have somebody else's opinion up here, we should value our opinion equally. We meet. It's not subtraction, right? It's not you being like, oh, I should undervalue their opinion. It's you can listen to them, you can hear them, but you have to actually consider it next to what you're feeling and what you're needing. And so learning and a big part of how we actually learn, like the practical steps to this, is to dump out all of your limiting beliefs you have about what it means to listen to yourself. Sometimes people will say, and I've heard many examples of and variations of this over the years, but it's like, if I learn my boundaries again, I'll be punished. If I state my needs to other people, I'll just be rejected or dismissed. If I speak up for myself, then I will get into conflict and I'll feel unsafe. If I learn to value my own opinions, I'm going to make mistakes and fail, or I'm going to mess up and I can't do it, or I'm not good enough. And it's like, we can have all these limiting beliefs and limiting stories we've acquired because of past experiences. And then these things block us from growth, from individuation, from learning to consider ourselves and our own feelings and needs and opinions and our truth, which is such an important part of like everything that you want to be successful at, everything you want to enjoy, having a healthy relationship. You have to be able to consider yourself and know who you are in the process of really, really maximizing and reaching your potential in all of those key areas. So it's a really big number two. And again, like when you're constantly overvaluing other people's opinions and undervaluing your own, you're silencing yourself all the time, right? It's on autopilot, it's accidental, but there is this process that's happening where like your voice, your opinions, your needs, your ideals, what you want for your life, your future, they're getting drowned out in the mix. And we have to be able to remove the limiting beliefs we have about ourselves in these areas and then practice relearning our feelings, our needs, and our boundaries so we can carve space out, hear and feel into ourselves again, and then be able to action those things out accordingly. And until we do that, we'll keep just like taking what the outside world says to us and accepting that as like the be all and end all. And in some ways that might serve you. Sometimes that might be something that aligns with you. And in a lot of ways, it won't. And you'll get the wrong information, or you'll get things that may relate to somebody else, but not you, and things that don't consider you as an individual. So just very important. Okay. Number three, you have to remove your fears of disappointing others. We can get so afraid, especially if we have attachment trauma, we can get so afraid of like, oh, if I have an opinion that goes against my spouse or my partner, the person I'm dating, we can get so afraid of like letting them down or disappointing them. But when you learn to communicate about things in a healthy way and work through differences, that actually brings so much growth into relationships. Like you'll come to know that you can have differences from other people, differences of opinion, differences of perspective, differences of choices, but that those differences often have a lot of complementary elements in them, and that we can often really, expand on those differences in ways that help us connect more deeply. And a lot of people think like, if I communicate my differences to somebody, they're not going to like me. One of the most common things I see is that when people are first dating each other or getting to know each other, if they don't express their truth to each other, it's like there's nothing to really connect with. If somebody just agrees with you and is too agreeable all the time, you end up feeling like, who's really there? Who am I really connecting to? And when somebody's strong about like their opinions, their domain, and they have that healthy sense of self, that's what people fall in love with, is these differences in sense of self and these like things that people bring into our lives because they have different opinions and perspectives to offer and to enrich our lives with, because we're having these discussions. So, if you fear disappointing others by, saying no or setting a boundary or expressing a need, those are fears you want to work on. And then our last two, number four, is somatic processing and nervous system regulation. If you're always in fight or flight mode, if you're always in like, sympathetic nervous system mode, you're always activated, it's hard to like be with yourself. It's hard to feel what's right or wrong for you, and that's going to really block out your intuition. If you can't feel your feelings, you can't feel your gut reactions, you're not in your body. And that brings me, that's what number 5 is being in your body. So we'll kind of couple these two together. If you're not in your body, it's hard to hear yourself. It's hard to notice what's going on. And so there's great tools you can use. You can do like body scans daily. You can meditate daily. So you're getting in the habit of practicing observing the sensations in your body, observing your thoughts, observing your emotions. The more you're building out those muscles of practice, it's getting you re-anchored into yourself instead of, maybe a history of being slightly dissociated over the years and really out of your body and not able to realize what your feelings and needs are in real time. So the more you're embodied, the more that embodiment is there, the more you're actually in your body, the better in touch you'll be with your intuition, and the more you can hear yourself because you have healthy boundaries so that you're not getting lost in the noise of the external world. And then the more you understand your feelings and needs and you can connect to these things, the more you're going to reconnect and rebuild that trust. And that intuition comes from that trust. And then sort of some bonus additions here. Is it's also very valuable to be able to consider yourself, right? Consideration of self breeds trust. To be able to be consistent with yourself and having healthy habits, consistency also breeds trust. And transparency, the more transparent we are, the more we understand why we do what we do, the more that trust is there too. And we'll start trusting ourselves and our own intuition accordingly. So in summary, if you want to go and do any courses, you can check them out for free. In PDS, the emotional mastery course is amazing for intuition, the needs course, the boundaries. If you can get those three things right, you're paving the way to be able to connect to yourself more deeply and build out that trust. There's also a really good module at the end of our self-trust course. It's actually called Rebuilding Trust and Overcoming Jealousy, but there's a module at the end called Repairing Broken Trust in the Relationship to Self. I think it's actually called Repairing Self-Trust. I think we renamed it to make it more simple. But you can check that out as well. And there's a whole bunch of steps that really illustrate all these different things and a workbook exercise that you can do in there as well. So I hope this makes sense. Thank you. Amazing question and topic. I saw this come up in many, many comments in YouTube videos and in the Facebook group. So please feel free to share other comments, video ideas, anything like that. And please subscribe to this channel if you're enjoying the content. I would really appreciate it. And I'll see you in the next video.